All good? Okay, great. Welcome to, this is the Metro Arts Commission Grants and Funding Committee. It's July 27th, 2026, and it's 11:30 instead of 11 o'clock. Can we do a roll call real quick? Just
Sure can. Commissioner Lefkowitz,
present.
Commissioner Jester,
Present.
Commissioner Knight,
Present.
Interim Director Batchelder,
Present.
Metro Arts staff, Jackie Hanson,
Present.
Sydney Ortiz,
Present.
and myself, Vivian Fox, are in the room.
Excellent. Welcome, Sydney. This is your first meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so pursuant to the provisions of 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, please take notice that decisions of the Arts Commission may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law writ of certiorari. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the commission. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedure and requirements are met. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. And Vivian, do we have any public comment today, either in person or written in advance?
Excuse me, we don't have any public comment in person, and we do not have any public comment submitted.
Thank you so much. We will move to item number C, the approval of the minutes. And the minutes are right there in your packet.
I move we approve the meetings from April 13th, 2026. Second.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meetings are approved. Thank you so much for that. And then we'll move straight to D. So we have 3 discussion items. We'll go ahead and do the staff report for 26 and 27, and then talk about next steps, because our next meeting is the big old thing, right? So, staff report, big old thing. Mhm. The official title. Okay. Grants team?
Yeah. I am happy to share staff reports. So you have this document in front of you with the headings. So first with the FY 26 Community Arts Leaders, CAL of Nashville. As you know, we wrapped up and celebrated the program on May 8th. Those closeout reports for host sites and students were due like FY 26 grantees on July 15th. 8 of 8 host sites have been submitted and approved. Likewise, 8 of 8 student reports have been submitted and approved. With our grant period for FY 26, we celebrated on June 15th, and we are currently in closeout. We've got 82 of 86 Thrive closeout reports submitted, 72 of 75 operating, and that review and approval process is ongoing. Shout out to Josiah for spearheading that effort. And we are doing, as you know, we approved guidelines for FY 27 grants. Do you want to talk about these?
Sure.
I'll pause for a moment. It's probably more logical. Your largest stapled packets are the submittable forms themselves. It's what those closeout reports look like. So we put this out in January. It was one of my first activities with actually joining. And so grantees have had some time, and we've, as we've met with some and in other ways, like always happy to have them kind of fill it out as they go in draft form, and then make sure that they final one for July 15th. We try to be really mindful of how this maps onto what they originally applied with, and any data we ask for, being, intentional about what we want and how we can use it. They do have an opportunity when they share their expense report. They also have a budgeted narrative section, and that's where they can go through, they don't have to itemize expenses per category, but we do ask that they give a brief description of each category, particularly as we know, if something shifted, as things do almost always in projects. So they have an opportunity to speak to that in detail. So we have that for our records as well. And Ashley and Sydney, if there's anything else, we do ask about partnership, and we know that can look a lot of different ways, so we tried to describe that as, of course, in the arts ecosystem, it is a very interconnected thing, but if you had folks that were really intentional in the planning, delivery, or impact of the project work, please discuss that, and we're trying to think about where those interconnections exist ever more intentionally. The locations, and that can be tricky for some folks, there are people that have maybe something in one location versus if it's a bit more diffused in their programming, whether because that's operational or a project. So we just ask folks to, do their best to think about where the in-person activities are taking place, and we gave some thinking around that to try to help people. And, we do sometimes get more specific questions, and we welcome those if anyone's ever feeling tripped up by the forms. And then we just ask for some success, some photos. We do require at least one, and we look for, if possible, high resolution. Those get shared in various ways. For example, I think, Chuck makes what I call, and it's not a lookbook, but the FY 26 grantees binders, for example, that we try to take out to things like, took it to the celebration, we took the FY 25 ones to the check-ins, things like that, just so folks can see sort of an overview of the kind of activities that take place with these funds. That was a quick flyover, so let me pause in case anybody wants to ask questions about the closeout report formats.
Thanks for that information on the location, and I know we've talked about that in here. And, I think we talked about too, that if they had something emerge during the time, so for example, there's a place where they can report more than one secondary location, right? Like, yeah, which is great. And then,
Yeah, it's plural if they'd like it to be, so I think.
these reports, we just keep them and use them for our own kind of data. I know they're technically public records. There's no connection to the current grant cycle, though, like in terms of if someone is applying again.
It's a requirement, so in that sense, and like I mentioned, Josiah is helping do the closeout process, and so, part of that was reminding folks, getting in your closeout reports is essential. If you don't close that process from an existing Metro grant, you wouldn't be eligible to receive a contract, so it is essential if folks are applying for this and others, like it is a requirement.
And what I will add, I think you're asking the question of why do we do closeout, right? What is the purpose?
Yep.
And what does it help us in our programming and our policy making? And part of the answer is we need to account for the funds, and you see that in the expenditure report and budget narrative. And second is when we are crafting these questions, some of the intention is that it can help us think about our grant policies, right? It can help us, I think, perhaps think about like categories of Thrive, like when we can more easily filter things like events and like look at the types of common costs and expenses. And what I wanted to share is that we have advocacy committee tomorrow night, and we're bringing the same thing here, just these closeout blank reports so that they can see the information that we are compiling as well. And it's so great that we have increased capacity with, of course, Jackie and now Sydney as well, because since I've started, we've not done a lot of strategic information with information that's been collected through the closeout process. And so we finally have the staff capacity to do more meaningful follow-up here. And so that's why we wanted to share as well. So like, hopefully things in here will help inform our policymaking and our program decisions as well as advocacy. Yeah, so we wanted to have y'all refresh information about what we've got here.
Great. Hoping to look at some trends over time and see how people, especially like with Thrive, are applying for different types of things.
effective.
What's the reason that 4 of the threat applicants haven't gotten theirs in yet? Have they given reasons or what's behind that?
Well,
Did you say that one?
well, no, I have not, but Josiah has been in touch with all of these, and so there are extenuating circumstances. There's no one that he's not directly in contact with. And so I think we're covered in terms of like, we know where we are with them, but, and they know too that it is a requirement.
So my question was just out of curiosity, not wondering.
Yeah. And that would be, I guess, the true answer is Josiah, has been in conversation, so we have to ask him
Fair.
to be continued.
And if someone does not meet that requirement, does that make them ineligible for future?
They have to get that report done. It's a Metro
Yep.
thing too. They have to close that process to be eligible for future.
Yep.
Okay.
It's same for operating too. You have to get that into, yeah.
Yep. It's the same. It's all in the guidelines too.
Yep.
So, I'll take us back into the staff report. So as you know, when council approved, on May 7th, May 8th became the day we opened FY 27 applications. And in a bit, I will talk a bit more about what we've some of the redesign elements, but we also had pre-eligibility meetings. So based on our grant check-ins, our ongoing reviews of grantee, processes and applications, we did have 6 conversations with returning operating grantees to go over, where things were in the guidelines and their eligibility. We also added some new applicant supports as well as continuing existing ones. So the period closed on June 26th, but we had 2 pre-recorded guideline walkthrough videos. They were very extensive. That was everything in the guidelines. Josiah and I recorded those. We have 2 resource guides. That was also new, one for operating, one for Thrive. So trying to give some information around what we were contemplating question by question to help both the applicants as well as now the panelists. We held 4 informational sessions about, an overview of what the process was. We did 11 in-person drop-in sessions throughout Nashville. And we held around 50 virtual one-on-ones. This is not counting any other kind of emails and phone calls, et cetera. And then we added the fiscal sponsorship food and fellowship event in May. And that was an opportunity for both existing fiscal sponsors, ones considering it, as well as applicants, because we know that's an area there's a lot of questions and need for deeper understanding and possibilities. So we held that. We did have 102 operating applications and 209 Thrive applications. And then I'll get to the panelist part. So we have a application period for panelists open from April 21st through June 15th. We received 102 applications. We selected our largest class to date of 45 panelists. That's 30 for Thrive, 15 for operating. And as we know, I've talked about in this committee previously, those panelist trainings are something we gave a lot of attention to, as well as the pieces of what we did in the application with the resource guide, et cetera. So we had 2 Thrive panelist trainings on July 13th and 2 operating, at which point we then afterwards followed up with their assignments. So they've been reviewing since then. We went into, it's a more detailed rubric this year, as you know. We went into greater detail about that as well, talked about the resource guide. And although we all know this is not a one and done conversation ever, but we did discuss bias both in terms of independent review and what that could look like on panel day, just things to keep in mind and have kind of an ongoing check-in about that with yourself and within your group. We talked about some sample kind of answers that were created and then gave them an opportunity to do an interactive component where either a chat or on the mic, they talked about what they were seeing and how they might give specific feedback. We got really substantive responses. Their engagement was high. We were really pleased with the kind of feedback they were providing. And we did give specific instructions on the requirements, including that there was optional feedback for each application question, but required feedback for each application at the end. that has two components. So one is to discuss the highlights of the application, and the second part is your recommendations for the applicant. And we really stressed, giving helpful feedback, what would be helpful to you. This is so important, not just for folks in terms of Metro Arts grants, but in other processes to really understand where they are and to, treat this with the full respect that it, demands when you're doing a vulnerable thing like applying for a grant. So we also provided some stems for feedback. Those were optional, but just to get people started on that specific feedback, if that was helpful. This was obviously a huge team effort, including those outside of our kind of traditional grants team. Want to specifically shout out some of those team members as well for helping us with that process. And then we have independent review happening now, but it's on the cusp of being completed because those panelists are coming on Wednesday and Thursday. We hope if you are able that y'all will join us as well, and please do send specific times that you would like to come to Vivian, and so we can make sure we have that.
Let's clarify the question that we got today from a grantee, just
Sure.
for.
So we did get, I think what you're asking is, different folks, including in the past Metro, have done panels in different ways because we use community funds in a way where we pay also community members as panelists who are arts-focused, demonstrated individuals who help us with this. We are pretty tight on time, and we also keep that process moving as best we can. In those 2 days, we have a high volume. So we don't have an opportunity for people to come in person and see their grant discussed or to sign in online for that. And we do sometimes get questions about that because that is, for example, Tennessee Arts Commission's process, or it has been done in the past, but it is not what we currently do at Metro Arts. So in case you also get questions about that.
And what time are the panels on Wednesday and Thursday?
Yeah, so we'll have breakfast at 8:30. They'll move into their rooms after we do an initial kind of setting on training, just when everybody's all together, going over some of the factors, and then we'll move into rooms to discuss, and that will be all day except for breaks and lunch. I would anticipate coming, if you can come, I would come maybe in the morning session or early afternoon would be a safe bet. But if anybody has questions too, just touch base with us. But we have told panelists to expect a full day, and at the end, we'll also be talking with them about, feedback they have for us ongoing. So.
And you can let us know, like, hey, I ended up having like a 2-hour gap in my day. Can I come by? Like, if your schedule's a little bit flexible, we just need to make sure 2 of y'all are not in the same room at the same time. And there's plenty of rooms, because we have 6 panels, like
On Wednesday we do, and we'll have 3 for operating on Thursday. So a little bit of a smaller operation, about half the size. And okay, I think we're in this last row here. So for the grant application review, as you know, we did return to something that's been done in the past, which is preliminary review, and we had that open from May 8th to June 5th. We got 28 Thrive and 33 operating, and staff did reviews and provided feedback to all of those applicants. We had technical review from June 29th as staff through July 10th. Out of 209 Thrive applicants, we had 187 that were determined eligible. That's 89%. Operating, we had 94 out of 102 applications determined eligible, 92%. And a summary of denials are going to be provided, and that will be after award decisions next month. So again, that independent panel review is happening now. It started either July 13th or 14th, depending on operating Thrive. And it's going through July 29th or 30th, depending on the grant. Our priorities continue to be, we're onboarding and training with our new grant coordinator. We're thrilled Sydney is here. She has jumped right in, and we are so grateful. We are working to complete that closeout process, so I'll let Josiah know your question, Commissioner Jester. And then our review panels are, again, this Wednesday and Thursday, July 29th and 30th. We're preparing our funding recommendations for committee on August 10th and commission on August 19th. On our end, you can expect to have our internal thing is to get the information to you by August 6th. So, and you can review that in advance of those meetings. And then we'll work to prepare our funding announcement package, and that includes what to expect through the FY 27 cycle. A few reminders, I told you I was gonna say this multiple times, but join us on committee day and let Vivian and or any of us know if it's closer to time. We have those food orders going in today, so. That is it for staff report, unless y'all have, any other questions that came up while we were reviewing that.
Thank you for all of this. It's amazing. For my own, just curiosity and record, because I know we discussed the resource guides in this committee meeting, I would love just to see it, see what, if you could send them to me, I can,
Sure.
for my own, just
We can do
whatever.
that with the follow-up.
Because I'm really pleased that that was part of what they got, and that's so helpful. And then I don't have it right in front of me, and I just wondered if off the top of your head, you knew about the number of applications as compared to last year.
So that's part of, I think, what we tried to speak to too, with like the pre-eligibility conversations and things like even that extended period and with the preliminary review. There are folks that never hit a number in applications because we were able to stave them off from even the frustrating process of completing something that wouldn't be eligible.
Right.
So that does show up in those numbers. And so just Ashley, we're gonna follow up with resource guides per Commissioner Lefkowitz's request. She would like to see those again, so we will in our follow-up. And now we're talking about how the application numbers from this year compare to last. And I was speaking to how we had new kind of built-ins that then affected the numbers we saw total, because it was less this year total than last year. Let me see.
One thing that we're also in the process of building is kind of the longitudinal, DIY database, about our Thrive applicants over the last 5 years, which is when we've seen the program growth, because I think, we don't know answers to things like, well, if somebody for returners who did not return this year, right? Which is not our goal to fund everybody
No.
every projects, right? But you'll see in the descriptive information that we have in the slides, that's next, the number of new grantees, right? So I think it's important to note that the majority of our applicants are new applicants.
Yeah. And that makes sense, given the projects. That's what I would hope
Yeah.
to see.
And we've had our cycles more frequently occurring than ever has been. And so I think that there are so many ways, and one of our closeout questions that I'm really glad that we put in there is do you see this project continuing? What might that look like? So I think we're in a better place to be theorizing internally about some of those things as well.
Yeah, I think too, we are, and we can look at all the data, but I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me, just thinking about the ramp up of numbers, in terms of whatever, and so there's a flush, and then it settles into a more kind of standard thing. Also, artists have other jobs and other things, and so if they're applying one cycle, they might wait a couple of years to apply, again, and so I don't think, my own thinking is that as we get a read on this in terms of the program, that the expectation should not be actually for Thrive, and numbers go up every year. I mean, it makes sense to me why they would not.
And I expect that we'll continue to see this healthy mix, you'll see in a few slides
Yeah.
of majority new.
Yeah.
Each year.
Exactly.
Well, I think we'll get to some of your questions too.
Okay.
Coming details. So that was just the overview kind of
Mhm.
piece of the report. So we'll get into some read now. So,
Okay. Oh, right.
yeah, these are our totals for, I think I did mention in the report, but we have 102 operating applicants, 209 Thrive. I'll get into the operating first. So it's a very pleasingly symmetrical graph of our applicants breakdown by the large, mid-size, medium, small, micro organizations. So we had 11 large, 24 mid-size, 32 medium, 24 small, 11 micro applicants.
Well, that's wild.
I know.
I love them. They're very pleasing. We saw it, we were like, oh. So these are our applicants by discipline. This is something too where we're thinking going forward, do we ask for multiples, given the 6.9% other? They do fill in a box what that means, but we'd love to know where there might be, say, crossover of genres. Because you have folks picking not only other, but maybe multidisciplinary is a pretty high number at 20.6. So that's just a sort of a parking lot consideration that's on our minds. But this is, as you can see, the breakdown, before you. I won't read it to you, but, this is where we are for the genres. And then what Ashley was just speaking to a little bit is that we did see 83.3% operating grantees returning. We would expect that number to be higher. We had 14.7% first-time applicants, and then 2%, that's a returning applicant not funded. Okay. Applicants that score 70% or higher, as you know, that's the threshold to be eligible for funding. So going from there, once, of course, you qualify, there's other formulas we'll go into. With Thrive, we had 209 applicants. You see, we had the highest number in individual, that's 126 individual artist applicants. This year, we also looked at artist collectives and nonprofit organizations, as in the past, as categories for the applicants. So it was 43 nonprofit orgs, 40 artist collectives. With fiscal sponsorship, it was, again, I mentioned the event we had. We have 66 unique fiscal sponsors this year. 41 of those are sponsoring just one proposal. 19 orgs are sponsoring between 2 and 5. 6 organizations are sponsoring 6 or more proposals, and 1 is sponsoring 24 proposals.
And this is 27.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here are our, similar to before, our applicants by discipline, even larger numbers of multidisciplinary. So again, informing our decision to maybe treat that differently on the application going forward. But here is the breakdown of that.
What's that? Teeny tiny,
Crafts.
oh, crafts.
Yeah. Good call. And then, again, going back to kind of what you were speaking to before, Commissioner Lefkowitz, we have 40.7% returning grantees, 48.8% first time, and a returning applicant not funded, 10.5%. That would have been Tech Deny at this point.
Or just panels and right from previous years,
Mhm.
but not funded yet.
So our requested amounts range anywhere from 3,500 to the full amount, 15,000 for Thrive. 186 of 209 applicants did request the full amount. And then for Thrive, we do rank order applications, and that is the policy decision to fully fund. Therefore, we distribute funding until it's depleted based on the rank order provided by the panelists later this week. So as you know, August, we'll say it multiple times, commission is vital. Next month, please make sure you are there. We will be discussing funding. We have, yeah, did you have a question?
And we'll be discussing allocations between the two, just as a reminder, and then also recommendations for.
Yeah, locking that in so that we can
Mhm.
let folks know.
Yep.
We have that review panel. Thrive is this Wednesday, full day. Operating is this Thursday, July 30th, full day. And again, I mentioned we'll get you those funding recommendations by August 6th so that you can then come to committee on the 10th and full commission on the 19th. So know that board packets are gonna next include, yep. I'll turn it over to Ashley for the array of goodies we'll be providing you with going forward, including the resource guides, don't worry.
There's just one slide away from getting to talk about math.
I know, I love you.
So, the rest of the slides that we've still got a handful more are really to remind us about what we did last year.
Yeah.
As the starting point for what we might consider our starting point for this year. And so the board packet that we are going to be sending by August the sixth will include the electronic conflict of interest form. This is like the survey that y'all will fill out that will list every recommended grantee with a conflict, declare, yes, no, or unsure. And so Vivian will help make sure that you all turn those in before you walk into the committee room, ideally like the day before, because it will really help us with the efficiency of the process. All three of y'all have been through this before, so I'll leave it at that. But just know that that'll be coming to you, it might take you up to 10 minutes to fill out because of its length. So also in the board packet will be the list of the recommended operating and Thrive applicants and their panel scores. And we will include a narrative description along with that really should help not just you, but all commissioners. So we will be sending this to all commissioners, help understand the sort of description and the justification around the funding recommendations, because it really is a whole package, right? The Thrive and operating allocation impacts the recommended grantees on both, right? So we have to think of it holistically. And so if you remember last year, like I wrote that pretty lengthy memo, which I'm not expecting that we'll have something that needs to be that length again, but we'll try to keep it, probably like a concise one pager that helps people understand the package that they are getting. And then one thing that I would like a little bit of feedback from y'all about perhaps is including the de-identified applicants that are not being funded in this cycle, which we will categorize as a tech denial or a panel denial. And so panel denial means just, not receiving the score to do that. And I put this on here because I know that we had discussion and things that came up last year. And what I mean by, de-identified, that could be, one small organization, right? Instead of naming every denial, and thinking about it on both, in both programs, right? Because on Thrive, we know that there will be 100 or more non-funded just because of how that program works. But open to feedback about what is helpful in the packet, and acknowledging like the years of context around like what to include in this packet, right? And different approaches of every year. And then is there anything else that you think would be helpful? Not for y'all, maybe because y'all are the most tuned into this process than other commissioners, just who do not serve on this committee, right? But like thinking about information that may benefit other commissioners feeling prepared to walk into that room on August 19th.
I guess I'm wondering about the denials that this de-identified, and I'm trying to think of if that would be helpful, or what is your thought in terms of just having an awareness of the number of denials that we have? What would you think about that?
Of why are we including it at all?
Yeah.
I think for, transparency purposes, when you are approving applicants, that action is also not approving others.
Right.
By measure of that action. And so I think just showing both parts of the whole, right? That makes up the 102 operating applicants and the 209 Thrive applicants, so that, the action is really an action on every applicant, right?
And then the de-identified piece, I'm just thinking through this. Why would we not have identified? I mean, I'm fine either way, and I'm fine with just a number, but I guess I'm just trying to think through even some of the things we went through, talked about last year, if there's something that would be helpful if it's not helpful, I don't know.
Yeah, this is something that we started talking a bit about and, yeah, identified it as needing to talk about some more. Timelines got constricted last week, so. Yeah, I mean, I think, we're approving grants as a measure of policy, right? The measure of policy is that organizations on the operating side who score 70% or above. And on the Thrive side, the measure of policy is applicants that score above whatever the cutoff will be, right? Which could be number 83, could be number 91, we'll know in a week. And so the motion is on the
Right.
approval of that structure, right? I don't know if structure is the right word, but, and then we have to be specific, of course, for the ones that are being approved because we need to name them and approve them. And then that leads us to the other part here. I mean, because it gets tricky if we start to talk about individual level anything.
Right,
Right.
exactly. And there's not gonna be an action if an organization is denied. That's not gonna be part of our decision-making that day, right?
Not the way that we set up the approval process, right?
Right.
Because the approval process is implementing the policy of 70% or above and whatever that Thrive number is.
I'm always for more transparency, so I'm good with anything. And I'm just trying to think about what would be helpful for us in the process. So we should do.
I wanted to talk about it, yeah.
I always like information, so I like
Mhm.
knowing who was not approved, because
Mhm.
that can certainly be useful, when I'm out in the arts community.
Exactly,
I think just announcing things before, there's a bit of an awkward dance of order of operations of when you hear on a, live meeting
Right.
versus like when we are communicating as well. And so, we have to do the approval process to be able to communicate. But people finding out through this format, if
Yeah,
you
that's-
don't get funded is, for me, part of the spirit of why it's de-identified, because
Yeah.
we're gonna be fully transparent with them about the feedback.
that's right.
But it's an order of operations with communications that's a bit delicate, and we're trying to be really conscientious about that to the extent that we can.
That makes perfect sense.
That rings, that's the reason. I didn't see another one until you said that, but if they're not gonna know after our meeting.
I wouldn't wanna find out.
No,
I need to find out correctly.
no.
And so that doesn't feel transparent. It's maybe.
Does that change, like, it's not like we're reading this list out.
We
like,
will on the 10th. So 9 days before the
We,
approval.
we will read out the people who were not approved.
No, sorry.
That's what I'm saying. So if we read out the people, like,
If it's part of.
we have a list, that's one thing. If we're announcing it, that's another thing, yeah?
Yeah, but anything that gets handed to us needs to be expected, it's gonna end up in
Public record.
everybody else's hands. It might not, but it needs to be expected that.
Sure, but it would not be like an announcement kind of thing.
No, but you could find out from minutes from one of us instead of a phone call from Metro Arts.
Right.
Which would be,
Let me put it this way, so this is committee meeting, August 10th, it's a Monday, and then commission doesn't meet for 9 days. We, for recommendation making purposes, for motions, right, like, we will read out loud in this room every single approval, right? So when these meetings were live streamed, we know that that was the meeting that everybody watched. We might
Oh,
have.
well, they'll know anyway,
Right,
yeah.
so you're
They'll know anyway.
listening for your name.
Yeah.
Right?
that's fair.
Yeah,
So, the other,
yeah, I didn't think about that. That's right. So even though it's not a formal denial notice, but yeah, it's public record, and if their name is not, then they, that
It also sort of does away with the need for it de-identified though, right? If they already just know, then there's no reason to.
Except it would identify to other people in the community who did not receive an award.
That's
Like I could very privately submit for an award and not get it and just walk away.
Walk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
okay.
We will not present you, no matter what this decision is, who is not being funded in this meeting. It would simply be something in your packet or
Yeah.
your knowledge.
We should proceed with de-identified applicants not funded. Let's just do it that way. As long as it's not a tremendous amount more work for you for no reason, then let's do it that way. You guys know what you're doing. I trust it.
I'm fine with that.
I didn't make a
Yeah.
motion.
And if we could also have in that, if they, had received, if it's like, de-identified, had received funding before.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
So if you recall, it's really different talking about operating and Thrive because they are very different programs.
Yeah.
So I'm primarily talking about operating
Me too.
right now.
me too.
If you recall, one document that we created for you last year, it was called 5 Years of Funding.
Yeah.
Everybody with the status of FY 26, because what's also not on here is the category that does apply to a few did not apply in FY 27,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which could be because organizations closed, it could be that they missed the deadline, right?
Yeah.
And so we could update, and it's on our whiteboard of materials. We could update that table where it's adding a new column of FY 27, where it's, would be did not apply or denied or recommended just
Mhm.
for each organization. So I think that's what.
I think it's great.
Anything else that you think would be helpful for the full commission, or like ways to describe this information? Or maybe we can go through the next few slides and then revisit this question after it, because I've got a little bit of here's a reminder of what we did last year coming up here. So, policy decisions. These are the policy decisions for us next month. The allocation between operating grants and Thrive grants. Once that decision is made, we make decisions about the allocations within operating grants.
Mhm.
So two different but related. So if you go to the next slide, this is a familiar image. Oh my goodness, it just went away.
There it is.
There.
Okay.
You have seen this before. It is unchanged, but this just shows the last 4 years of operating in Thrive by percentage of our total grant budget.
Mhm.
And so, this shows the increased allocation to Thrive. It has been 40% of our grant budget, which amounts to the $1.3 million. That is what has been the last 2 cycles. And 1.9 million at 60% of the budget for operating. Numbers wise, operating supports between generally 80 and 100 organizations because it's that pass-fail method, which we'll talk about in the next few slides. So that is supported in the 60%. And on the 40% for the Thrive, that 1.3 has supported 75 projects 1 year and 86 projects the second year. And so because the project amounts are different, it's going to vary a little bit. And so what you can probably expect from us is that we will continue to use this distribution when we sit down on Monday next week and start putting our panel results to formulas and calculations to put together our package. I'd like to pause and hear any thoughts or questions that you have about this, because this is really, this decision affects every decision after it.
Mhm.
And it's a package, right?
Yep. I mean, the only thing I say in terms of what we offer the commission and what we have is, as a visual person, thinking about, data presented like this is very, helpful. So, presenting things visually, I guess, to give us a sense of, and also to kind of act as a reminder, right, of precedent, what's happened the last few years. Yes.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. So once a decision is made on that distribution between the two programs, we move on to determining the allocation within operating grants. So as the slide says, once the operating budget is determined, so if that's the 1.9 and change million again, a specific percentage of that budget, 1.9 million, will be assigned to each category, categories being micro, small, medium, mid-size, and large. This will then determine the scale that we use to calculate the award amount for each size category.
Right.
And so as a reminder, all qualifying applications are those that receive a score of 70% or higher. Reminder that the organization, so the applicant's revenue is the determining factor for the award calculation, not the panel score, right? So if an organization scores a 100% on a panel or a 71%, their grant amount is going to be the same. That's what we mean by this pass-fail, right? I know that you all know this, but it's easy to forget when you don't live in this every day.
Yeah.
So thank you for allowing me to repeat what you likely remember already, but so let's look at a reminder and look back at what this looked like last year. If we go to the next slide. Hopefully you can read that okay, but this is what that looked like last year. So in the first column, we have organization size, again, large through micro. We have the number of grantees in each category. So these are grantees, right? 8 large organizations, 21 mid-size, 26 medium, 16 small, 8 micro. It's that same sort of symmetric, or it's like a bell curve, right? As our applicants look like this year, just not as quite perfect. So the next column, percent of funds. What this is showing is that of our $1.9 million operating budget, 15.5% of those funds were allocated to organizations in the large category. And you can see down to 2.5 in the micro category. The total funds is just that math, right? 15.5% of 1.9 million, 303,000. And then the award ranges are shown there. So again, that's based on award ranges are calculated at the scale by the organization's revenue. So the next slide breaks this down a little bit more. That orange looks so much better on my computer screen when we're doing it than it looks when you project it here. So it's sorry for the harshness on the eyes, but the staff recommendation that you will receive on August 6th will include recommended allocations by size category. This method was new last year, and we weighted the scale to provide larger allocations to micro, small, and medium than what a uniform scale would provide, which is what we did the first year that this model was used. The next slide breaks it down a little bit more. Sorry again for the harshness of that orange. Scaling calculations are based on a comparison to, quote, full funding. And please note that no operating grants have ever been, quote, fully funded under these guidelines that we live in, right? The method for assigning specific allocations, this method results in smaller organization allocations at a higher percentage of full funding. So what I mean by that is you see large organizations ended up being scaled to 22.9% of the full funding that they are eligible for. Mid-size scaled to 33.5% of what they are eligible, all the way down to micro-organizations scaled to 61.2% of what they are eligible for. Does this sound familiar of what we did last year? Okay, I know to somebody who doesn't know how this all works, this is not enough information to like fully understand it, but this is the flyover. Here, the next slide. So this is a distribution of what that looks like. Each dot is a different organization. That font is quite small, but you can see micro starting at the top down to our large organizations. So you can see the award amounts at the bottom. This is just another way of showing those ranges. And so our grants for organizations range from 1,800, which was the smallest grant in the micro category, up to $46,000, which was the largest grant in the large category. And so again, as a reminder, our policy goals and objectives, particularly in the last 5 years of this agency, has been to bring greater parity in award sizes between the largest and the smallest grants. And so we started doing that 2 cycles ago, the cycle before this one, and then here again. And I know that you all know that history, but I think it's important to continue to acknowledge that is what this looks like. Any questions here before I keep going? Okay, we'll go to the next slide. And so considerations for FY '27. Again, this is considerations for when we on the staff side prepare our funding package that you will receive. How will the number of grantees in each category this cycle compare to last year's? So this is showing last year's numbers. We expect that our FY '27, our current cycles, may feel pretty confident saying will be higher. And so, and we saw that in the number of applicants, right? So I'm expecting we may have slightly more in the mid-sized, medium, and small organizations, right? So that'll give us a consideration when we're determining this. If you go to the next slide. Another consideration is how will the percentages that are assigned to each category, each size category change based on these numbers and in alignment with our policy goals. And so what I mean by that is, you know, we might not anticipate the number of grantees in the large category growing, but we know that there are more grantees in the medium category, right? So how, you know, we on the staff side will look at lots of different things that we ultimately break through, right? But we know because of this pass-fail scoring method in operating, the more people who pass is great, but we know that it affects our numbers, right? And so we will be thinking through things like formulas, knowing that we likely are going to have more grantees in this, right? So what is that? How is that going to shake out? But we'll be looking at that as we prepare our recommendations. I think this is my last slide. Oh, no, it is not. I have 2 more slides. Can you go back? Don't show this yet. So any questions on this part before I move on to my last 2 slides?
And just the consideration too, that unlike Thrive, in which fully funding the project is about the integrity of the project, and that's the decision that we have made consistently based on feedback, but this is percentage piece. So the expectation was not that they get the full amount, or that it's just deciding how to allocate what we have.
Yeah, and I'm sure when we do like the community process that I think Jackie has referenced in the fall, like I have guesses about what we're gonna hear about, right? You know, it's balancing our access goals with making sure that how the numbers work are still in alignment with our like policy goals, right? When we look at the formulas in the dollars.
Yeah.
So, great. All right, so that is the hard task that you know that we are gonna be working on 1 week from today, after our panels conclude this week and we begin applying the formulas. So if you go to the next slide, these are, yep. So these are the last two things. You've seen these images before. This is just operating allocations, and I chose to show it this way because it allows you to most easily see the comparison year by year, fiscal year. So this shows by the size categories, the darkest blue at the bottom, those are our large organizations. And so you see the steady reduction in the total grant budget allocation. Again, that's been a policy goal, right? That's been about bringing greater parity in our award sizes to organizations as we bring up our awards to our smaller organizations. You see the greatest growth in the medium category in the total dollars. And, you know, keep in mind that this is where we've had the greatest growth of the number of organizations, right? When we looked at the bell curve number of applicants, it was that medium one in the middle. That was our highest number of applicants as well. And you see growth in the small allocation. And so, you know, what you can expect from us is that we will continue bringing recommendations that advance these policy goals that this commission has spent a lot of time over the last years setting policy to support. And our FY27 was a blank column there. It will be something different next week. But you can go to the next slide, which is the last one, I believe. If you go to the next slide.
One more.
And this is what you've seen before. We've just added 2027 for fiscal year. And so this is the same slide we just looked at, but with the addition of the yellow, which is Thrive, right? So the reduction of allocation to the large organizations has not only gone to other operating organizations, but it's gone a lot to Thrive, right? So you see the growth in the yellow area. Apologies, I know you can't read those numbers, but it's what we started at with the $1.3 million to Thrive. So that is the last slide, I believe. Yeah. And so that's what we've prepared, to like get us all thinking about what we're gonna do next month when we come into this room. And then, you know, just if you have any like things you want us to look at next week when we, on the staff side, are looking at these different formulas and, you know, putting our recommendations together for the package that we'll bring you.
All this makes sense to me. I feel confident. Look forward to our next meeting.
August is gonna be here before we.
It is.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's great. I would love a copy of the slides. Did you know, just always like these, so helpful. And yeah, I think it's gonna be great. I do think that it'll come back to us, like, once we start. But having data like this really is helpful. How many new commissioners do we have from last, who have come on this year? Like, who have not done like Commissioner Greer didn't do, yeah, and she was just appointed, right, last time? So she's the only commissioner.
We did grants in September of 2025, and so we may have a new commissioner. As well.
But by and large, the bulk of our commission has been through the process before, which in that sense may be helpful in terms of us all kind of coalescing around it and helping each other.
Yeah, and I want to remind us that we did in next month's meeting last year, we took some pauses and said, what would the data look like if we, put a floor in this formula, right? And we will be able to do that. The beauty of putting these formulas together is that they're all based on spreadsheets, right?
That's right.
That populate the visuals that help us understand it, right? And so it will be created in a way that, if we say, well, what if X, Y, or Z, that we can use committee for that. And I know that that's been important for y'all to like be able to really deliberate based on seeing, cause and effect
Mhm.
in the numbers.
Yes. Yes. That's also where was that where we looked at kind of the outliers, or that was the decision around guidelines?
Yeah, Vivian, if you could go back like 6 or 7 slides, keep going, back, that one, forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
When we looked at this last year, there were some outliers in the
Yeah.
large category.
Yeah.
And we were able to look at the floor,
Right.
the minimum for that, and made some adjustments that did not affect, it affect just the large category only. So we weren't
Mhm.
pulling money from other categories. We
That's
were
right.
just better distributing within that one row.
Yeah.
We've addressed that guideline flaw
Yeah.
in the guidelines
Okay.
this year
Mhm.
by,
Yeah.
doing some, work in the guidelines around what those minimums were.
Yeah. That's what I thought that was in the guidelines. And I think that's very helpful.
We know the cap can be sometimes misleading because it is a cap, not the
Right.
expected. So we, that's also mentioned in the guidelines. We do get those questions too.
Yeah.
So that is all that we have prepared for you
Mhm.
for this meeting. So process, next month. Part of the board packet on August 6th will be that conflict of interest form that you will fill out online. And when you send in your results, we get the notification that you did it. So that will really help us create efficient paperwork for the meeting. And so Vivian will be helping y'all remember to fill those out. We will have legal provide a brief refresher on what constitutes a conflict of interest and best practices around that. And we'll have discussion about these policy recommendations
Mhm.
before we get to individual award approvals, of course.
I think that's great. Any other questions from you?
Give you a reminder again. Make your pitch.
Yes, as promised, I'll say it multiple times. We do have panels this Wednesday,
Yeah.
July 29th, and this Thursday, July 30th.
Mhm.
Thrive is the 29th, operating is the 30th. There will be 6 panels on Wednesday and 3 on Thursday. So please give us your RSVPs with specific times. Vivian is collecting those and I'll pass them along since she read it.
If you
Doing
had
that
to guess, breakfast training, like what time would the panel start?
I can actually probably send pretty exactly.
So I've got
And, yeah,
plan around some other things. I would like to attend. at least.
yeah, that initial part 2, of course, is like essential for panelists' instructions, but would not be as essential for you to
Right.
experience. So
I
yes,
think the first discussion will start around 10.
and because they'll be getting set up in their rooms with internet and all that, when they first go in, take a few minutes. So yes,
It's like 10 to 2.
and they could never come at 10. I'm just saying this because it's being recorded.
Students cannot come in.
If you sense my hesitancy before, it's because that is essential for them, but you will not be scoring, so it is not essential for you.
Correct.
And that is for both days.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. What day were you gonna come? Thursday?
Yes.
Me too.
Yeah, Thursday I'll be operating. We have
Can't
3
come.
panels. We will not put you in the same room, so it's not a problem.
Great. New old business, I wanted to bring up for discussion after, but I guess it would be after not next month. So maybe I don't need to mention it, but just I'm thinking about this committee because we're down to 3 now, and I know we'll talk about more about this, but my own feeling is that more on this committee is better. Of course, Commissioner Wade stepped off. But even then we were at 4, and I felt like, so, I mean, I feel like 5 is great, or more even, but at least 5. So I don't know. I don't know where that would go in a discussion, but I also, in terms of chairing the committee, I'm happy to pass this off. People have a burning desire. Also, if there's not a burning desire within, I'm looking at you two only because
We're here.
you're here. We're the only members of the committee right now, but I'm just saying, I'm happy to let somebody else take a turn.
You're just now nailing common law road certiorari, so we should let that stand for as long as possible.
When you nail it,
Tertiary. So anyway, I just say that.
I would say that I agree with you about more members here. I think this is probably the committee that should have more people on it than fewer, and I trust all the people on this committee, but I think more voices here is pretty important. I am perfectly happy for my burning desire to be for you to continue chairing this committee. I have a lot of faith and confidence in you, so.
Second, his statement.
That wasn't a motion, but we're all.
Well, Commissioner Jester has chaired this committee.
I have.
I have chaired this committee.
Oh.
Commissioner Knight, you have not chaired this
I don't even
committee.
know what Satori IC is.
Certiorari. Certiorari. So you just think about it.
I hear you.
Okay, just think about it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all. I just wanted to bring that up. I'm glad that it feels like we're okay with more people, because I do feel that's really
I
fair.
think it needs to happen, especially 4 was a minimum. I think that we're understaffed.
And Director Batchel and I have talked about how this is the committee that really, to me, helps you understand so many things about, because grant making is not that the other functions are not essential, they are, but this is, and so there's a level of understanding about that is super helpful, I think, to be on this committee.
Yeah.
I've learned everything from being on this committee, so. Yeah,
Yes, and I have talked, I've talked with one commissioner about joining.
okay, great.
Who is, you know, willing to answer the call. And so, yeah, I'll speak again with the chair about just formalizing that appointment. And
That would be 4.
And, you know, part of the, capacity, I guess, was when our commission was reduced from 15 to 11 members.
That's right.
And we have 4 active committees. Grants, public art, advocacy, executive, was our active committee, looking at you nominating, you gotta convene next month. You gotta help with that. Which, you know, is a standing committee as well, that only meets typically twice a year. And so part of it is capacity of multiple committee meetings, which means, you know, for people serving on 2 committees, it's 3 meetings a month, which in the Metroverse, I'm pretty used to.
It's a good word.
You know,
It is a good word.
we a lot of committees.
Yeah.
Which is good, right? It's a good thing. But that's where some of the commissioner capacity comes in.
I do have one question.
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to be a new business thing. And I forgot to ask about it when we talked about the budget last week, but how are the number of people that we are bringing on as grant panelists, how's that gonna interfere with our spaces available for? Why am I not remembering?
Submittable,
Submittable,
yeah.
yeah.
we fixed the submittable issue, we
Yeah.
just added more seats, and do you
Yeah.
want to say
Yeah.
anything more about?
We added them in, for this period, and then they know like they're gonna be removed out, right?
Yes.
After they wrap up with us with the panel service and submitting all their feedback, so we'll complete that process at the end of this week.
What's it solve? That's perfect. Did it end up being a huge budget issue?
It ended up being more manageable than I thought it would be, but we worked with our
That's
reps
fantastic.
submittable, and it's just a simple amendment.
That's great. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Mhm.
And I will remind us that, we received a one-time budget allocation in the mayor's budget, which, is a huge accomplishment.
Especially this year.
Receiving not one, but two modifications, that's increases in the Metro Arts budget, which, they knew that it was important to us, and our assigned budget reps really advocated for us, as well as making our own case, as well as
Mhm.
the mayor's office knowing how hard we have worked to catch up, knowing
Mhm.
that this year would be the year of double expenses that are not typical.
The funding.
You
of
and
extra
Capri for
expenses.
presenting that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yes,
Nice.
very grateful to all of you for making that case, and then also for. Thank you.
And our commitment to paying panelists. I mean,
Yeah, that's very important.
had we not got it, we would still figure out a way to pay our panelists,
Yeah.
because that is very important for accessibility. It's important for the values of our commission. It's important for,
Yeah.
having a community-led process that makes it more possible. It's still not possible for everyone to, take all this time, but,
Yeah, it's good.
So we'll have a second fiscal year process, and thanks to that mod, and that informed some of the choices we had to make before the budget with this cycle.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Everybody good? Again, I've never been late for a meeting. I know that.
We're all here. It's all
I have a high
timeline.
attendance. I'm not gonna toot my own horn, but I have a high attendance rate and I've never been late. I'm just gonna say that. I'm so sorry that I was confused.
This is bad.
But I will not be late next month. And if you could not be late next month, we could all.
August
be-
is a big
Yeah.
month.
It's a big month.
let's just
So-
check August 10th.
August 10th. The time.
It's still 1 o'clock.
I'm gonna tattoo it.
And that works, it's a new school year, August 10th, like that works for our people with school schedules up. to
Oh,
date.
Yeah, I've heard 4 classes.
1 to 3.
4
Yeah,
classes.
it's fun.
1 to 3.
August 10th at 1 o'clock.
Hmm.
Gonna write that on my arm.
I hope it's not there tomorrow, the next
It's
day.
the
my
first,
God.
it's your first meeting of
I'm gonna get
August, and it's
tattooed.
at 1.
I'm
First
gonna get
and
a
1.
tattoo. Everyone, please check out my arm.
Nobody's upset.
It was really not an inconvenience.
It's not. If that's as bad as our day gets, we're doing pretty good.
Okay.
That's true. Very well.
Move to adjourn.
You'll hear from us electronically on August 6th. Before our panels.
We will follow up with these items as
Awesome.
requested.
You're-
Okay, so move to adjourn.
We adjourn.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all so